Good evening. This is Kilo Charlie 9er Uniform Delta X-Ray. My name is Matt and I welcome you to the 2 a.m. net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation and also to establish this part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen. Licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. We listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kcs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. When checking in, please announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now.
Good evening, Matt, W9JCC.
Alright, there's our ever faithful Frank, W9JCC checking in. Anybody else wants to check into the 2 a.m. net, come now, please. Alright, hearing nobody, so slow start, but I'm sure we'll have some more later. It seems to be the way it's been going lately. So, first of all, I guess I'll just turn it to you, Frank, but I got a question. I wonder if you participated in the Wisconsin QSO party. Otherwise, feel free to talk about whatever's on your mind. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, hello, Matt, KC9UDX, W9JCC. Yes, I modestly got involved in the Wisconsin QSO party. I think I made 3 contacts from home here, and then I took a ride down to the farm there at WQ9A's shop, and those fellows were working the QSO party. Although I didn't make any contacts there. Just chatted with some of the guys that were there, and not a whole lot's changed since the last time we've talked. This morning, Lenny and I went to the gym. We went to a movie this afternoon, and came home, and I was watching another movie tonight, and it's I'm going to miss the end of it, so I'll probably have to see what happened there with that when I get back upstairs. So, anyway, back to you, Matt, KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I can't recall the last time I sat down and watched a movie. Well, I should take that back. My wife and I watched a movie that I downloaded, maybe 2 months ago or something. Very, very short movie. Maybe it was a half hour. And beyond that, I haven't really watched movies in years. I don't watch much TV either. But as far as the Wisconsin QSO party, you may have been there then when I contacted Bill, WQ9A, working as KX9M. I did record most of my operation, hoping to get it on YouTube, but for various reasons my camera let me down, and the software that I use for editing the video files let me down, so I only got 2 pretty lousy videos up on YouTube of my operation here. But kind of worked casually. I didn't get down here till about 2 o'clock or 2:30 or something, and made a measly 60 contacts. That's 7 less than last year. I guess it's just kind of hard for a guy with a family who works 3rd shift to be doing something like that for that long on a Sunday afternoon. So I will have a pretty miserable score, especially compared to last year. Last year I had bonus points for being a rookie. That was only my second entry in the Wisconsin QSO party last year, and this year I don't have that anymore. So I haven't had a chance to enter all my contacts and figure out my score yet. Hopefully do that the next few nights. I found myself in a pickle. I realized I hadn't quite cleaned up my my logging from last year, so I've been spending time doing that the past couple of days here. I'm not sure why I didn't finish that, and maybe it's got something to do with the fact that my antenna came down the day after the contest last year, and so I didn't do any HF stuff whatsoever for the rest of the year up until I put the antenna back up last weekend. So, with that, we're at the bottom of the list, of course, there only being 2 of us so far. So let's see who else we've got to check in now. Anybody wants to check into the 2 a.m. net, come now, please. Hearing none. Frank, of course, if you hear anybody I don't hear, let me know. Otherwise, we may have a slow night here because I don't know what else I can spend too much time talking about. It's been work for me. And not a whole lot else worth talking about going on around here. So, I'll send it back to you, Frank. See if you've got some more interesting things to say. I'm sure you will. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, KC9UDX, W9JCC. No, I didn't hear anybody in the background there or in between transmissions. And I wonder if you're using logging software there for the contacts. I think I heard Bill mention to me that they made about 100, or he made about 100 contacts down there. So he did pretty good on the QSO party. And as far as watching TV goes, I watch way too much TV. Usually around supper time, the TV comes on, and it's usually I'm doing supper or watching the news on a little small screen in the kitchen, and after that, maybe some news, and sometimes a couple times a week we might watch a movie. So I've got to get a little project here. I don't know what to do next though as far as projects, because I did the band decoder here a year or 2 back, and the only thing I can think of is to maybe try one of those Adafruits and try to rebuild it, but that would be maybe a mechanical project. There wouldn't be much software involved since I already wrote that, so I don't know if I want to tackle that or not, because that's really the hardest part, getting the holes drilled and all that kind of stuff, and generating another board. So anyway, yeah, not too much. I hope somebody jumps in there, because I don't have a whole lot more to contribute either there, Matt. Back to you, KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And as far as logging software, I wrote my own. It runs on the Commodore 64. And I always prefer to write my own software whenever I can. So I wrote a logging program that worked exactly the way I find it most convenient to do my logging. Of course, my logging is mainly done on paper, and the logging software that I wrote directly reflects that and makes it real easy to go from the paper log to a obviously electronic format. I have no intention whatsoever of directly entering contacts on the computer at this point, so I end up writing out a paper log, put it in the computer, and I can convert to Logbook of the World and Cabrillo format. Shoot, I was going to comment on your project, and now I lost my train of thought. For some reason, I did not intend to work 12 hours yesterday, which brings me to noon this afternoon, I guess. But for some reason, I volunteered. I don't know why I did that, so I ended up working working real long, and of course, I got another 12-hour day in an hour or so here. So that's why my brain is kind of fuzzy right now, which is why I don't have a whole lot I can speak about. And now I was gonna make another comment about that here, and I forgot. But I am recording this for YouTube, so everybody will be able to look back and see myself blathering here and trying to speak. Also see some of my mess in my station. I've got the camera positioned a little bit different than I had it before, and if I took a picture of where the camera is, it would be even more embarrassing. There's a pile of boxes that is all stuff that belongs on my bench. Behind me, the boxes stack up about 4 feet tall, and I've got a tripod kind of sitting on top of the boxes. I do hope to repair and put together my bench again here soon. I may have to buy a jointer. I've got a whole bunch of wood that I recovered from pallets that I would like to use to make the bench. I'd rather not go out and purchase new wood. I'd rather put money into a jointer that I could use for future projects too. So we'll see how that goes. And that brings us to the bottom of the list. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Well, either everybody is worn out from the Wisconsin QSO party, or they're, well, I don't think everybody's out enjoying the weather at this point, although the time change might be throwing some guys for a loop. So we'll go back to Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And your usual 40/9 in here, so nothing much has changed there as far as the signal. It sounded real good. And yeah, Commodore 64, boy, that's going back a ways. I got rid of all the old computers here about less than a year ago, I think. And as it turned out, I didn't free up a lot of space. The table they were on, or the 3 of them were on, is still there, and they weren't taking up much space in the what used to be the kids' old playroom here. So they're gone, but not too much more space to claim there. And as far as using the computer here, I have a computer down here in the shack, but it's off to the side. Keyboard, when I have to use a keyboard, I have to put it on my lap. So it's not very conducive to using for logging or anything like that. If I could raise my rig off the table a little bit, I could probably put a keyboard out in front here. But then I'd still have to put the monitor where I can see it, or I'd have to look to 90 degrees to the left. And I was just wondering about YouTube there, Matt. I got another friend too that puts a lot of stuff on YouTube. Can you get advertising on that after a certain point if you get enough followers? I wonder if that is something that goes on there with YouTube. The other thing we did today, we went to a movie out at the hillside, and we stopped at Home Depot on the way back, and Winnie got a couple of sacks of soil, so she wants to start planting some seeds. And she's going to start with some tomato seeds and see if she can grow her own tomatoes here indoors before the season starts for planting outside. Usually we would just buy the plants at the greenhouse, but she's going to try a little different this year. I hope she doesn't get too much soil in the house. I hope it warms up quick outside so she can do it out in the patio. Back to you, Matt. KC9UDX, net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And let's see if I can, I wrote down what I wanted to talk about here. Let's see if I can do it in reverse order of how I wrote it down, because I think I wrote it down backwards. First of all, you were talking about trying to use the computer like that, and I've almost got a similar situation here. My operating desk here is a picnic table. It's the heaviest picnic table I've ever seen. I have no doubt I could put 2 tons of metal on top of this picnic table and probably stand up and jump up and down on it, and it wouldn't be compromised in any way. So it's monstrous. And I have my my computer, my one computer that is in the I guess you would call my ham shack here, which is a very limited space intentionally, and that of course is the Commodore 64. It takes up about I'd say 20% of my operating desk here. But because of the size and shape of this picnic table, it's not terribly good for typing. It's not terrible, but well, I guess the biggest issue is that the table is not at desk height. It's significantly higher, so it's kind of a... I guess if I had to spend all day typing, it would probably hurt my wrists after a while. And well, I guess I started using the Commodore 64 probably 7 or 8 years ago. Of course, I bought one brand new in I think 1984, 1985, something like that, and I used it up until about 1990. And then I put one back together here, you know, a couple years ago, because I thought it would make sense to have it here in the ham shack rather than using something with Windows or a high-end Amiga like I use for everything else. That would actually take up more space, be electrically more noisy, and sound-wise considerably more noisy than the Commodore 64 is. And plus, there's no reason I can't use the Commodore 64. I can do everything that I used to do on it, and of course, it's real easy to just quickly write new programs for it. So, now I forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, next thing I wrote down here to talk about is YouTube. I can't say for sure what it's like when you first start out with YouTube, because it's been a couple of years since I did. And it hasn't been a whole lot of years, but in the short time, I guess, that I've been doing this, they have drastically changed the rules. And I would like to say that you can, if you have products that you want to advertise, you can do that probably immediately. Now, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. If you just start up, you can start making videos with advertisements in it. You cannot use YouTube, or Google's rather, AdWords system for putting their advertisements in and getting paid by them immediately. Let's say you're starting out and you've got videos that a lot of people want to see, and you have the means to promote them, like you put them on Facebook and you actually get thousands and thousands of views, you know, you're probably still looking at a year or two before you can actually start using AdWords and start getting paid. And alternatively, what people have been doing is using other services like Patreon or other advertising means. Of course, you don't have to use AdWords built-in commercials. You can, you know, put advertisement directly in your video, which can generate revenue for you that way. Or of course, like, you can use Patreon, where people just donate to you directly. And I hope I've answered your question. I'm not sure if I went off on the right road on that comment there, but and as far as the tomatoes, that's pretty wise getting that stuff ready at this point. Most of us, of course, wait till it's too late. I should probably go this weekend and get some fertilizer, because I don't know when it'll you know, it might be a good time already by the weekend to fertilize the lawn at the least, and then we can look at what we want to plant in the gardens this year. I think my wife was talking about trying potatoes this year, so we'll see how that goes. Maybe she'll try popcorn again, and of course radishes, tomatoes, pumpkins, whatever else she normally grows too. I don't get into that too much. I just plain don't have time. I've got far too many other things going on all the time. And with that, before I keep yapping and yapping here, we're at the bottom of the list. Do we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Come now, please. And Before I give it back to you, Frank, one more comment on the YouTube stuff. I was saying that they've drastically changed their rules. They are changing them even more at the present time, and it's getting more and more difficult to start out on YouTube now. You know, even for me, having done this for a couple of years, I hardly get any views. YouTube does not like to promote me for a whole list of reasons, the way I understand it. So it's kind of exponential. If you don't get a lot of views, you don't get a lot of promotion. So it takes a very long time to get anywhere, and I think that's getting even worse. It seems like they're working their business model towards more. They want to have like professional videos, not done by network television or whatever, but professional. Like I'm trying to think of the names of some of the high-profile YouTube video producers, but there's some real high-profile people that do real high-quality production, and I think that's what they're trying to limit their stuff to. So they're going to gradually squeeze out the smaller guys like me. But we will see. I don't know how much you look around on YouTube, but Gary W9TOF has got a good channel, and there's a guy whose call sign I can't recall, who calls himself how does he say it? I'm a junk collector. You have to check him out too. And maybe I could send you a link for that. But there's a lot of other good YouTube channels too. I should probably make a list of recommendations at some point here. But anyway, I'll send it back to you, Frank, before I keep yapping. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, that's very good. And sign on the picnic table there for the operating desk. Well, what I'm using here is actually an office table, pretty heavy-duty office table, and I've got a desk behind me that matches it, and that was something that I purchased back around 1967, 68 time frame, and have used it ever since for operating the station. And the table has all the equipment on it. The desk behind me is what I use when I have to repair something that's in the basement. Rather than take it over to the workshop, it's a lot easier to do to just lift it off the operating desk here and move it about 3 or 4 feet and disassemble or work on something there. And the lighting's better and the heating's better and all that kind of stuff. But there's not too much I work on there. I've spent quite a bit of time redoing the 75A4 and recapping the Johnson Ranger and troubleshooting those pieces when I had to. But the rest of the gear is pretty much, well, if it fails, I have to send it back to somebody because I know the 1000B, I think they quit making parts for it, something outside of a simple transistor or a resistor capacitor go-ups. Probably going to be tough going to find a replacement for a display or something like that. And the YouTube, I'm not quite sure what promotion means. If you get a lot of hits on your YouTube, what does that mean? I mean, if you get promoted, does that just mean that you are put at the top of the list when people are searching, or is there any monetary part of that that happens? And I really don't watch YouTube very much, but there have been a couple of guys that have put YouTubes on, that I know that have YouTube sites, yours included. One thing I've noticed with YouTube on Windows 10, and I don't know if it's something set up on Windows 10 or if it's just the type of video that's on there, but for example, a friend of mine put some. Huh. I might have let off on the button here. Well, anyway, sometimes the videos don't play the video, and just play the audio. And if I go over to my iPad, I can play it just fine. And but other, YouTube videos seem to play just fine on Windows 10. There's just some that don't play well. And I haven't really dug into it very much, but it's kind of puzzling as to why that's going on. Anyway, back to you, Matt. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
Well, first off, I have not ever experienced that on other platforms, so I would definitely say that sounds like a Windows 10 problem. Not specifically Windows 10, but maybe your installation, maybe the video hardware or software you have. I have no idea. I don't know the first thing about Windows 10, and I kind of like to keep it that way. I didn't use Windows 7 until about a year ago. I got a laptop at work that runs Windows 7, and prior to that, the newest Windows I had ever used was XP. And it took me a long time to get to that too. I used Windows 2000 here for a while, and I did not ever use any of the Windows 95, 98, any of that stuff prior to that. Windows does not have a very big part in my computer usage. There's certain things you have to have Windows for, unfortunately, these days, and that's about the only reason I ever use Windows. Now, as far as YouTube promotion, there's two ways people, well, there's several ways people find your videos on YouTube and watch them. And, you can give somebody a link and they will find it. That's one way. Another way is you can post it on a different website, especially something like Facebook, which I don't do, or a forum site or something else, or maybe your own personal website or whatever. You can put a video on another website, and that's one way people can find it. The third way, and this is internal to YouTube, is YouTube's recommendations. When you start out on the main page of YouTube, it just gives you a bunch of recommendations. And the fourth way that's internal to YouTube, which is the other major way, is by getting a recommendation when you watch a video. When you watch a particular video, then you'll get another list of recommendations, which are loosely based on the video you're watching, but also based on your watch history and the popularity of the video that you're watching, and things like what other people that watch that video watch, or what the person that made the video watches. It all depends on how YouTube wants to promote that. I was going to say there's a couple other ways here that people find out about your videos, and I'm struggling for words, but that's where the YouTube promotion comes in. If you don't get a lot of views, now what happens is every time somebody watches your video, you get a view count, and of course if you're getting paid for through AdWords, which I don't do, I have never get paid for anything I've ever done on YouTube, but if you sign up for that, every time you get a view, you supposedly get paid a certain amount. So that's one thing that happens when you get a view. The second thing that happens is the more views that you have, the more YouTube wants to promote you. So the more likely it is that your video will be seen by other people. And of course that goes exponentially, so that the more your videos get promoted, the more they get seen. The more they get seen, the more they get promoted. For the first year or so that I was on YouTube, I hardly got any views, and then gradually people started watching some of my videos, and then it started building up, and it's to the point now where I get about 1,000 views a month, which is not many by other people's standards, but about a year ago I would be lucky if I got 12 views a month or something like that. So I hope I'm answering your questions and not making it harder to understand. And your operating desk and your operating table and desk sounds a lot like what I've got here. The area behind me is my electronics bench area, which I have changed significantly recently. So it's hard for me to describe right now what I've actually got. But I've got a a bench that's a little bit larger than my operating desk is here, and that's got all of my electronic test equipment and projects that are taken apart and other things all piled up. And of course that's all completely disassembled right now. I took apart the bench that I had, which was made out of shelving racks, just because I had them, and it worked out for a number of years that way. And I've rearranged, and I've figured out how to get more out of my space. But now I'm to the point where I have to build a larger, heavier bench to stack everything up on. And like I say, hopefully I can tackle that this year. Maybe the sooner the better, but we'll see. Things go very slow around here. Unfortunately, I can never seem to get enough hours in at work to get ahead here. But we are at the bottom of the list again. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Well, I'm not hearing anybody, and I'm kind of surprised. I thought we'd at least get 3 or 4. It seems to be we've been having pretty good attendance lately, but I guess I can't complain. We're here talking and having a good time anyway. So back to you, Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, KC9UDX, W9JCC. I don't know, I might have a push the top switch is not making a good contact here. It seems like it's dropping out every now and then. And it's not always because I'm letting up on it. Yeah, thanks for the explanation there on YouTube. You mentioned something there about sign-ups and then getting paid for videos. I'm just kind of curious how that works. When you sign up, is there a fee, or do you just get automatically paid for that? The reason I asked is my grandson tells me he's got a friend that's getting, thousands and thousands of hits, and he's getting money for it. So I'm just wondering how that would work. Oh boy, I think I think one of these days I'll have to put some deoxit here on the switch on the mic, because it looks like it's on its last leg. Yeah, as far as repairing equipment, I don't have any test equipment out. Are you hearing what I'm hearing on? Is the signal dropping out there in that?
Yeah, it's hard to describe what it is. It's kind of a strange oscillating scratching sound. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Maybe your transmitter is cutting in and out. I'm not sure.
Okay. If it does it again, I'm going to drop the power. Maybe it's... can you hear me now, Matt?
Yeah, nothing unusual that time. Pretty clear, but that was a pretty short transmission, obviously. So your power, received power here is the same as before. I don't know you'll be able to change that much, though.
Okay, well, I went from 25 watts to 5 watts, and see if that helps. Yeah, so what I was going to say was I keep all my test equipment in the closet, which isn't much. It's just a scope. I got a little scope behind alongside the desk here on the floor, and I got a DVM, and that's about it. And this soldering iron's over in the workshop, so if I have to repair anything, those things get pulled out and we use them. But there's no workbench per se. So anyway, not too much what I can think of contributing here, Matt. So turn it back there to you, KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. My battery on my GoPro camera seems to be holding up better than it did last month. It still shows 2/3. It's always hard to gauge, though. So maybe the next time I look at it, it'll be depleted. I think I was down to 1/3 by this time last month. Anyhow, when you mentioned when you sign up to get paid on YouTube. Now, I read an interesting thing from YouTube the other day. They claim that the average YouTube user, now average you can calculate many different ways, so I'm not sure how they did it, but they said the average YouTube creator generates $1,000 a week. And I would guess that you have to do a lot of work and have a lot of interesting content before you ever get anywhere near that amount. None of the people that I've talked to make any significant amount of money at all, and like I say, I don't sign up for that stuff. I'd prefer just to not do it. Now one of the things I didn't mention earlier is I'm pretty sure that hurts my viewership. I think when you sign up to make money on YouTube, they promote you more. I'm not 100% positive of that, but it sure seems that way. So maybe I could make more money than I think I could, but either way, I don't plan to find out. And I don't even have the means to find out anymore. They have restricted people like me from being able to do that, and I'll explain that here. When you sign up for what is called AdWords, which is Google's brand of advertising, you don't pay anything, and what they do is they insert advertisements into your videos. Generally, you'll see an advertisement right at the beginning of a video, and I'm not sure why or how this happens, but you can get advertisements within a video or after a video too. And every time one of those advertisements is viewed by somebody on your channel, then Google pays you a certain amount per view of those advertisements. And I don't know what that amount is and how they calculate that. It's got to be pretty low. I think you would have to have lots and lots of advertisement views before you start getting any significant amount of pay. And I hope I've explained how that works okay. But now here's the catch. They have recently set a standard that you already have to have a channel that's extremely popular in order to be eligible for AdWords. In fact, everybody I think I personally know who's got a YouTube channel that is currently using that service is being kicked off of it because they don't have a big enough presence. So, like I say, unless you've got something revolutionary that people really are going to want to see, and unless you've got some other way to promote it, like you've got a huge following on Facebook and you put your YouTube videos on Facebook, maybe that would help, but otherwise it would be a long time, I think, before you could get to the point of even being able to use AdWords, before you can start collecting small amounts of money, before you can start collecting large amounts of money. What was I going to say? There's a guy, Sean something, I can't remember his name. If you look up Mousetrap Mondays, that's a bigger channel. I don't think I'm subscribed to him. I'm not sure, but I see his videos all the time, and that's one of the guys they cited as making $1,000 a week. And you can see his production quality and what he puts into it. He generates a new video minimum every Monday, and they're long. They're like a typical television show, a typical how-to show or something, I suppose. And the amount of money he spends on his production is pretty decent. So I'm guessing that's a significant portion of that $1,000 a week that YouTube pays him. And like I said, there's other ways now because people are trying to get away from AdWords. There's things like Patreon where you can. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I suppose it's sort of like Kickstarter. You say this is what I'm going to do, and then people will decide whether or not they want to contribute, and they contribute significantly larger amounts of money per person than what you would get for them seeing your videos with AdWords. So maybe that's something to look into. I don't know. Like I say, I don't really have any intention of making money on YouTube. You know, especially because my channel is theoretically amateur radio based, even though most of my videos don't end up being about amateur radio. But I'd like to think that somebody could use one of the methods to get on the web over the air which I know you can do, and I have not done it. But if somebody were to do that, they could view videos on my YouTube channel legally, because you cannot legally view anything with advertisements over ham radio frequencies. Now, the odds of somebody ever actually doing that are slim to none, but ideally I think it would. At least I'd like to be able to say, if somebody wanted to look at a YouTube channel over the airwaves, then it would be safe to look at my boring channel. Let's see if we have anybody else. I think this will be the last time I ask for more check-ins, but let's see if we got anybody else that wants to check into the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none. My GoPro battery just dropped down to the last segment, so I got 1 out of 3 segments left. I don't know how much time that gives me, but I don't think we're in any danger of running out here anyway. So back to you, Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, very good. And yeah, now I think I understand what how the AdWords works. And I suppose I could have Googled something there around about YouTube and found that out on my own, but you did a good job explaining that. And that's not for me either. I'm not going to spend hours and hours trying to make videos. I don't have too many subjects I could put on there to begin with. And fine on that Mousetrap Mondays. I wonder if that's all one word or spaces in there, but I'll probably go up and take a look at that just to see what the guy's doing. So, very good on that. And I don't know if you've done any HF besides the Wisconsin QSO party there, Matt. There have been times when the bands have been open on 20 meters and even 40. There's been some DX coming through on 40 meters, and it's spotty at times on 20, and not much on 15 or 10. I think 10 may have been open just a little bit one night, but not too much to write home about. Okay, I don't have too much more here to make this the 73 round, unless you got something else there on that. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. Yeah, I think I'll do that. It's about that time anyway, and actually the earlier I can get back upstairs and get ready to go to work, the easier it is my night goes. But I will say that if you were to do a Google search and try and figure out how the advertisement money making works on YouTube, I got to tell you, I don't think it's that straightforward. I have learned what I have learned by reading a lot of it over the years. I actually think Google does not a very good job of explaining that. Like I say, you almost have to be to the point where you're eligible to do it, even in order to just figure it out. And I don't know when the cutoff was. It might have happened already, but I might not be eligible anymore. I was up until very recently, so I'm not. Either I'm not now, or I won't be very, very soon here. And anyway, like I said, I just don't. That's not what I'm in it for, I guess. What else was I? Shoot. Oh, the HF. I was. I think it was 2 years ago during the Wisconsin QSO party. My antenna came down during the contest, and last year it came down shortly after the contest. Maybe it was the next day. We probably had a windstorm. My antenna comes down from tornadoes, literally, windstorms, which we get severe wind here, and birds. I've had birds eating my antenna ropes. The longest I've had a HF antenna up was about 1.5 years, and since then I can't seem to keep one up for more than a couple of weeks. So last year, after the Wisconsin QSO party, when my antenna came down, I didn't get around to putting it up again until last weekend when I was preparing for this year's Wisconsin QSO party. So I have not done any HF to speak of. I was just thinking the other day how nice it would be if I put up a second antenna again. I have a 10-meter dipole that I made that works okay, and I used to have that strung up in a different place, and I forget why I took that down, but it's actually real convenient for me to switch between the two antennas here the way things are set up. And I should put that up again, so at least I always have 10 meters, and frankly I can get away with 15 and sort of get away with 20 meters on that antenna too if I really have to. Just like I can do 160 meters on my 80 meter antenna now. Speaking of which, it would be really nice if I could get my KW working again. I really missed being able to use 160 meters during the contest. It's been a very long time since I've gotten to do anything on 160, and local contests like that is the ideal time for a guy like me with a very poor 160 meter antenna. My HF antenna is it's 140 feet, I think. You know, I built the ARRL's recommended 135 feet antenna, which is supposed to be a little bit too large for 80 meters, and ideally then you can use a tuner and use all of HF reliably, but it always electrically comes out short. And I built the 135 foot one, and it was still resonant in the upper part of 75 meters. And I built a longer one. It's at least 140, maybe it's 145 feet or something, and that hasn't changed much. So tuning on 75 meters is not easy to do. Where was I going with that? Oh, the trees that I can put an antenna that long up in. Well, the tree that I use right now, which is the best possible choice, is a box elder tree, which is rotting out very badly. And actually, right now, if I pull on my antenna, the tree sags. So I don't think that tree is going to be much longer. In fact, if my antenna comes down again, I'll be very tempted to just pull the tree down. It's a pretty big tree, but there's just not much left of it, and sooner or later it's going to become a safety hazard anyway. But you know, this stuff kind of sneaks up on you. I've got some trees that were just a couple of feet tall, you know, when I bought this place. That one of them is actually my antenna support on the other end, and some of those trees on the other end of the property have gotten pretty tall, and actually I was going to survey that this weekend if I can. You know, figure out exactly where all my trees are in relation to each other and see what my other antenna options are. The orientation that I've got with the box elder tree is sort of ideal, but really with the antenna as close to the ground as it is, especially now, to make sure it's not coming down from tension, I lose that directionality anyway, so that doesn't really matter. But there are no other trees or supports or anything in the direction of that box elder tree, but I think I have places in other areas, but there my maximum distance is going to be 150 feet, and my trees are inside of that, so I may have to do a shorter antenna or do an inverted V or something. But that's why I want to survey it, so I can figure out exactly what I can do. Anyway, I'll turn it back to you, Frank, and if you have anything else, otherwise we'll call it done here. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, very good. And okay, the antenna coming down during the contest, yeah, that's not a good time for that to happen. And I've never had the birds eat my guy ropes, or ropes that hold up the wire antenna. Just haven't had that. We got a lot of birds that like to sit up on top of the beams, and sometimes we get a couple hours up there. When I get up in the morning and get the paper, I'll see one or two of them up there occasionally, but I haven't seen no one now for a couple of months. And they like to sit up there and do their business, and if the wind's blowing right, it happens to hit the house. The antennas are, well, the tower's only about maybe 10 feet at the most from the house, and so they do a job on the side of the house sometimes. And we cut quite a few trees, or trimmed some, cut some, and part of that was due to antenna encroachment. I get to the point where if I lower the tower down, I have to rotate the antenna. I wouldn't be able to rotate it when the tower's down, you know, cranked all the way down, because trees would be in the way. And so we've had to trim those from time to time, and taken one or two of them down. So, yeah, I don't know, the 140 meter or 140 foot antenna you have, is it a dipole or unfed? If it's a dipole, halfway dipole, I've got a pretty simple spreadsheet that I wrote a few years back that actually calculates the length of the, if you know your resonant frequency, you could just put the resonant frequency in, and then put in the frequency that you want, and it will tell you exactly how much to trim off. So you don't have to go through the calculations longhand there. Anyway, I'll say 73s, Matt. Nice net tonight. Too bad we didn't get a few more. But it's always good checking in with you there. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And as far as the birds, that was, you know, my antenna was up for about 1.5 years, and all of a sudden one day the birds, for some reason, decided that they liked my nylon rope, and all of a sudden one day they started chewing on it, and it didn't last a couple of weeks after that. They just, lots of them kept just chewing on it, so I don't know what brought that on. Maybe maybe one of my neighbors put something the birds like to eat on my rope, so that they wouldn't have to look at my ugly antenna anymore. I don't know. But I haven't had a problem with birds since. I've had tornadoes and windstorms since. And it is a dipole. It's a half-wave dipole fed with 450 ohm window line. And the idea was it's 135 feet is resonant somewhere below 80 meters, so that you can use a tuner and you don't have wild tuning inside of the band. So it's deliberately not resonant within the band. And like I say, I've gone even larger than that. I did calculate what the actual resonant frequency should be, and it didn't come out that way. It came out far higher resonant frequency than what it calculates. But anyway, I won't keep yapping here, and it's getting kind of late anyway. I'm sure we have other listeners, and we will certainly have other viewers on YouTube, so we didn't have anybody else talking, but I'm sure we had a pretty good audience anyway. We'll see. 7-3 Frank, we will do this again on the 10th of April. I'm surprised my camera didn't fall down here and I didn't run out of battery. We did pretty good. So this concludes the 2 a.m. net. And like I said, we'll meet again on the 10th of April, same times and same frequency if nobody else is using it. 7-3 Frank, thanks for being here, and have a good night. KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, 73s. Have a good evening. Good job on the net as usual. And we'll try to be here next time if we can. KC9 UDX, W9JCC clear.